Welcome, everyone. My name's Emily Baker. I'm a MAPS executive coach here with my partner, Erin Simons. And today we're going to dive into list to last. So we're going to talk about why focusing on listings, what's important, what do sellers really want right now, because value is held to the perception of the recipient. So we always want to make sure that we're translating there. Before we dive in, Erin, you and I have been focusing on listings for a long time. You a little bit longer than me. And yet I know you've taken and sold over 1,000 listings in your career. I've taken over 50 listings every single month with a high level team. So listings are a jam. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what we do in getting you set up for listing success?
Yeah, well, first off, if there's ever been a time to focus on listings, the time is now. Would you agree? Right? If there's one thing that we can control with all the noise that's going on in the industry, it's going out and taking listings. And when we say taking listings, or when you hear list to last, or when you hear listings are leverage, we got to remember listings is a giant juggernaut. And one of the things that we do in Mega Listing Agent, and the reason why we're so passionate about the course, is that we actually break down that big, juggernaut into bite-sized pieces. For example, it starts with, where do we find listings in terms of what do you like to do? Because Emily, you would agree that there's no one way to go win when it comes to finding listings. And so what we do is we go through the buffet, right? Whether it's a certain source, whether it's a way that you like to communicate, whether it's face-to-face, over the phone, being TCPA do not call compliant, whether it's direct mail, we first go through all of it so that you can pick your customized path for exactly how you're going to go find the business. We then talk about, how do we pre-sell ourselves up front, pre-list package, pre-qualification. We then break down exactly what the listing appointment needs to look like, including value, which we're going to talk about today. Because even a listing appointment gets broken down into 4 separate stages. And then, of course, what do you do now to service that listing? What's big right now, Emily? Price reductions. As we're seeing inventory going up, I've got so many clients who are needing help with price reductions. So we go through servicing the listing, price reductions. And then, of course, once you sell it, what does that post-close look like? And so if I'm missing anything, by all means, let me know. Yet that's what we do in the course, is we take that whole listings, we break it down into the steps such that you can go implement wherever you're at in your career. There's something of value here. What would you add, Emily?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's just simplification on the systems and the model, and then it's execution, right? And a lot of times we hear, well, what do we say? Well, what should I say when someone says this? And we go through all of those conversations and dialogues and those objection handlers, and how we meet the client where they're at, such that we can focus on listings. Because focusing on listings, if there's anything that Erin and I have learned in our careers, it's that the reason why we focus on listings is because it buys your time back.
Yeah.
How many of us have showed a buyer way too many houses, right? And or we're getting those receiving, you take them out and they don't like the house, and you don't understand because it's the house that you thought that they should write an offer on, or now they want to think about it, or they're nervous. There's a lot of scarcity out there. And the one thing that we can control is the inventory. And it's, supplying the market.
Well, and here's the thing, when you buy your time back and you actually get control of your time, what then does that allow you to do? What are the things that you're missing out on because you're what do they call them? The Pop-Tart agents that just jump and run when, because when the buyer calls, we got to go, right? You lose some of that control. And if you had that back, what would you then reinvest that time into? Would it be your family? Would it be to building the business? Would it be to your kids, like your own, yourself? What would you do with that time?
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, so we're kind of talking about why we focus on listings. So Erin, let's dive in. So you'll see here, these are our top 5 reasons of why we focus on listings, right? Seller listings mean marketing opportunities, right? You get to put your sign in the yard. Also, potentially based on where it's at, right? You can put out directionals. We teach that you should be putting out no less than 15 directionals. Be obnoxious with it, right? You see a garage sale sign on a corner. They may have had two other signs that you missed, right? Because when we're in the car driving, we're listening to music, listening to a podcast, talking to whoever's in the car with us. Some of us talk on the phone as real estate agents, right? We live in our cars. So we're not always very aware of the surroundings. So put three in one corner, right? So mind share leads to market share. Write that down. Mind share leads to market share. So we put our sign in the yard. You get to market the listing through direct mail, email, social, multiple ways that you get to market, and then you get to advertise it as well. So when you do that, you generate leads, right? Listings are a lead generation machine.
In my own, okay, this is embarrassing to admit, Emily, yet in my own neighborhood, we had a listing come on the market, not with myself or my wife, but it came on the market. And that agent, I'm paying attention, right? She sold for a great price. And then after she sold it, she went and knocked on everyone's door and did like a personalized equity statement for each house in the neighborhood. There's about 60 homes in our development, right? And she did the work. She went and did that. As a result of doing that work, guess what happened a month later?
She got a listing.
She got another listing, right? And I'm glad she got that listing because I'll tell you what, that's one tough cookie behind me. Yet she got another listing. And again, no one's seen it. It's been on the market for 2 weeks. So you tell me. However, here's the deal. She then knocked on the door, invited all the neighbors to come and look at the open house, right? And I know that she's probably gonna, if it sells, she's probably gonna come around again. And she's been holding open houses on it. How many people has she met through those open houses, right? So it just proves your point that listings beget more listings. Listings beget more listings.
Yeah. And then again, as we mentioned, you have control of your time, right? You can maximize your dollar per hour. One of my favorite exercises to do is to take how many hours that you spend on average with a buyer start to finish, and then how many hours you spend on a listing start to finish. It's usually about half. And from there, usually the commissions are whatever they are, right? And then you divide that out by whatever your standard commission is for you personally or your team. And it will give you your dollar per hour. And so you have time to focus on, like we said, your health, your wealth, your relationships, the things that actually matter that so many of us lose sight of in this business.
That's right.
Volume. Aaron, talk to us about volume.
Well, listen, because we have leverage with listings and we have more time back, one of the things we said you can do at that time is you can reinvest it in the business, meaning where I would say it's a 4-to-1 ratio, meaning if you work with one buyer, you could work with 4 sellers in the same amount of time that it takes you to work with that one buyer. And so instead of going out and earning whatever your average commission is with that buyer, if you just focused on sellers, multiply it by 4, and you wouldn't be doing any more work. Does that sum it up for you?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's exactly
you don't have to go any further other than that, just that one point right there.
Yep. Well, and I think that a lot of times, one of the things that you and I have heard as we've been doing this a while with the mega listing agent is that agents that have predominantly worked with buyers sometimes are intimidated by sellers, or they feel like they don't know what they don't know, right? And so that's where, when we guide you through all of this, you have the tools, the systems, the research to show up as the economist of choice and to win the seller, right? And once you start taking, a listing consistently, again, you become a listing magnet, because as long as you do the work, right? As long as you do the marketing.
And I don't know that I could stress that point more, because one of the reasons why we do this course is to, educate everyone on and kind of take some of the mystery out of being successful with sellers. Because you're right, agents will tend to gravitate towards working with buyers because there's less confrontational conversations we have to have with a buyer, right? We don't have to have a conversation with them around the right price or price reductions or what are we doing to sell it. Like there's those conversations aren't as confrontational with the buyer as they are with the seller. And yet we want to demystify that, because if you just practice the conversations and we give you the conversations, right? If you just practice it, then all of a sudden you become a lot more powerful and a lot more confident, and you start wanting to go work with more sellers.
Yeah.
It's interesting when the market was really ripping, everybody wanted to be a listing agent. And now all of a sudden, as we've seen the market soften over the last 2 or 3 years, I have teams, I have 3 teams specifically, Emily, and I don't know if you're seeing this also. They can't hire a listing agent to save their life. They have more listing opportunities than the Rainmaker can handle. And the team members don't want them, and they're having a hard time finding someone who wants them because they're afraid of the conversations.
Yep.
Crazy. They should
Yep.
take our class. All right.
Well, and with seller listings, you're also on the front end of pricing, which translates to an intimate knowledge of the market, right? And what we mean by that is that when you're consistently pricing properties, you're looking at CMAs, you're looking at price per square foot, you're looking at those key performance indicators of the market that we go over, you will have a better understanding such that you can educate, right? And we know that facts trump feelings, so we can drive a lot of urgency, because there are a lot of sellers out there right now, Aaron, that are on the fence. They're uncertain. Is now the time? We'll look, and interest rates went back up, and now it's an election year, and I'm not really sure about this. We're hearing a lot of that. So what are the facts that we present such that it eliminates any insecurity or uncertainty that a seller may have in regards to this asset?
You know what? One of the things that we talk about in the course is we talk about the different lead gen options. Now, one that we talk about a lot, because I grew up on them, you grew up on them, is we talk about expired listings. Now, I think everyone just got off when they heard that. But because we all have this perception of expired listings, like, oh, I don't want to get on the phone. I don't want to call that. That's hard. That's, they're scary. And yet you don't have to call them. What if expireds called you, right? What if you had a great letter that you sent on a regular basis that caused them to call you? And so I was teaching this to some of my agents last week. And again, it's straight out of the class. And I'm like, I wonder what's happening in my own market now, because most of our business now is database, and I haven't, reached out to the expires recently, but I did a quick search for the month of May. And in my own little market that I would even be willing to drive to, right? There were 89 expires in the month of May. 34 of them never came back on the market. 34 of them never came back on the market. And by the way, it took me, so from doing the research, right, to running through those 89, to then filtering out the ones that I wouldn't want, to then merging the letter, printing it, hand addressing it, and send it off, Emily, and I did this to prove a point, it took me 45 minutes to send all of them a direct mail letter, a golden letter. Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
But to your point, especially right now, we're assuming that everything is sell. It's like there's so much opportunity out there.
Yep, that's exactly right. And then the last one, we'll hit on this quick and move on. So the properly marketed seller listings bring you more business, right? When you multiply the marketing efforts, right, and the listing process, obviously every listing, every sign should replace itself through your marketing opportunities, which we go over in our marketing checklist. And yet you also should be getting 1 to 2 buyers. I'm seeing 1 on average right now, just because of where interest rates are. So I also want to be transparent there. Do we have the opportunity for 2? Of course, right? And yet we're yielding about 1 buyer per listing. And so again, it's just generating. If you are a rainmaker or you have a team, your job is to make it rain, and that's the listings taken number. I'll never forget Gary saying, if there was one number to focus on in your business where you would guarantee that you would hit your year-end closing, it's listings taken. It's signing your listings. If you sign enough listings, you will hit your year-end closing goal, because listings yield buyers. So,
by the way, if you sign enough listings, you might earn the right to not even have to go work with buyers.
Yeah, refer it out.
Yeah, I have a client. He takes enough listings to the point where every buyer gets referred. Won't even touch them, because he protects his time.
And there are a lot of agents out there that are struggling. You can refer it out at whatever you want. You want to do a 50-50 referral? So many agents would just grab on that opportunity right now.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on. So what's the one thing that sellers want? Sellers want to net the most amount of money with the fewest amount of hassles in the least amount of time. When you think about what sellers want, all of the objections that you hear, right? It usually falls under two categories. It's money or it's convenience. Okay, it's money or it's convenience. So this kind of encapsulate, if I could speak, goes over this in terms of to net the most amount of money with the fewest amount of hassles and the least amount of time. So let's talk about how that translates in a value conversation with sellers. So if we move to the next slide, please. Thank you. We've got 4 stages of the consultation, as Erin had mentioned earlier. We've got the consulting to the decision, the marketing, the property, negotiating the contract, and the closing of the sale. So if we go to the first one, the consulting to the decision. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is for us to reach an agreement, set expectations, clear as kind, right? Such that we're on the same page with our client. So Erin, walk us through this.
Yeah, so listen, we're doing the needs analysis and we're walking through the home with the client. Now, remember, we probably would have pre-qualified, so some of this we might have known ahead of time, but that's part of the consulting to decision. We then get to share who we are and how what we do will benefit what they're looking to accomplish. We explain the process, how the compensation works, right? The pros and cons of course, leveraging the MLS. And then we go through the value of the home, right? We explain the market, the value range, how long it takes. We explain the things that have to get done to get the desired price range. We then show them the net sheet such that if we could do all of this and net you this much, is that enough to then take and do what it is you're looking to do? And then they're going to make a decision whether they want to move forward or not based on that. And then the cool thing is, the last thing we're going to do is sign the contract. Listen, when we sit down with a seller, this is the listing presentation. It's no more complicated than that yet, Emily. Everyone is so wrapped up in thinking that it has to be something more than just helping someone make a decision. Yeah. And I would say that the biggest mistake where agents miss it is they spend too much time on the sharing who they are and how they do it, and not enough time on the needs analysis in terms of what the client's looking to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also, what information that you're presenting to a seller. That's another one. Sellers need specific information such that they can have a clear understanding of what's happening in the market, right? We all see the media. We all, see the news. Everything in real estate is, oh, interest rates are so high, right? Oh, inventory is still really low. Oh, now inventory is starting to raise, right? Prices are going to go down. Is the real estate market going to crash, right? These are the questions internally that a lot of sellers have. Is now the right time? Am I making a smart decision? And so by going through what's happening in the market on a macro view and a micro view can clearly assess to help the seller decide, is it the right time for them based on their motivation? Yeah, so exactly. Next, we've got the marketing the property.
Let's just say this about marketing the property. We have the curse of knowledge in real estate, and we think we have to get very, very creative on what marketing the property means. And yet it doesn't have to be that way. It can be the simple things such as putting up a for sale sign, such as using professional photos, such as helping them declutter. Does it have to be any more complicated than that, Emily?
No.
No, it's that. It's that. It's exactly what's right here. We don't have to have all this special technology, all these crazy websites, all these different quote unquote mofers. We don't need that. Just this basics, they are excited about.
That's exactly right. And I think that, we sometimes forget the 3 things that cause a property to sell. It is first and foremost, the price, right? And the price is determined by the location, the condition, and the market. So the everything else is fluff, right? When we obviously professional photography, right? Yes, I get that a lot of agents use professional photography. And yet being excited about your photography, right? Like they may think, oh, everyone says that, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's your energy around, your belief around the value and the presentation in which that you're going to create the experience for them to net the most amount of money. So what do we do to get the property ready, create the marketing assets, and then it's running the play. All right, negotiating the contracts. These are some things that we forget with sellers, even with buyers sometimes, on these next two, right? A lot of times we consult the decision. We may do that pretty well. We may, talk about our marketing or feel really good about that fairly well. It's typically these last two that we don't talk about enough, because at the end of the day, again, what does a seller first want? To net the most amount of money. So negotiating the contract, this is for you to really, really highlight your value there, whether that's a list price to sales price, yours versus the market. Maybe it's your office versus the market. But it's, what are you going to do for them? We're obviously going to present the offer, right? We're going to go through seller net sheet. We're going to negotiate the contract. We're going to guide them through the due diligence period.
This is another one of those areas where we have curse of knowledge, meaning we do this, hopefully we all do this so frequently that we forget that the seller doesn't do it every day. And so when we actually slow down and we walk them through these three things, that has a tremendous amount of value for them. They feel taken care of.
Yep, that's exactly right. And fall through is a big one right now. I don't know if you all are experiencing that out there. I know that I've been hearing that a lot and seeing that in numbers where fall through is a lot. There's a lot of harder deals out there right now with financing, with interest rates, lenders getting creative, buyers having buyer remorse. Little things like inspection, little things on inspections are scaring buyers away due to the state of the market. So this is a really big one on the bulletproofing for them. And then we get to the closing of the sale, right? The closing of a sale, it's a celebration. And we're coordinating with either title or attorney, depending on your state. We're reviewing the closing statement. We're helping them on the preparation, confirming all of those conditions and repairs, and then we're verifying on the funds to close.
So one of the things that we talked about earlier, Emily, was some agents prefer not to work with sellers because it can be a little confrontational, right? There's some conversations we're going to have where they're not going to like us very much. When we're having price reduction conversations, when we're maybe negotiating and the offer is less than what they said they wanted, but they move forward anyway. Yes, there's going to be times where we're going to hit choppy waters with that client and they're not going to be happy with us. And yet, I've never seen it fail. Closing cures all. Closing cures all. No matter how rough things got, at that closing table, they will sing your praises because we ultimately got them over the finish line. It doesn't matter, how big of a price reduction, how many price reductions, that it fell out, that it went back under, that they're taking 50,000 less than they ever thought they would. None of that matters. At the closing table, they are singing your praises and they're grateful for you shepherding them on the journey. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. One of my favorite things when having conversations with sellers, if it's a fierce conversation, right, or they're not liking something, I always just preface with, hey, we're going to have a real conversation. And I want you to keep in mind, you didn't hire me to list your home. You hired me to sell your home. Can we agree? Right. And just getting on the same page there immediately, like, right. You hired me to sell your home, not to just list it. And sometimes out there, I know y'all, I hear it too. sellers are sometimes unrealistic in the expectations of, oh, well, let's just try this price, or no, I want to just try this. I'm not in a super big rush. I've got 6 months, whatever, right? And so it's really, really nice to just use that line of, hey, friendly reminder, when we met and we talked about you getting from here to here, you hired me to sell your home, not to list it, because listing it doesn't get you here, does it?
Yeah.
So we're
And
going to have
listen,
a conversation of how we get there.
yeah, and look, the whole reason we do the program is because we've done this over 1,000 times. And what we realized is that you see the same situations over and over again. It's not 1,000 new situations. You see the same plays being run over and over again. And the more that we can educate you from the trenches about what that looks for, how to have the conversations, how to set the expectations, right? How to go about it, then that's what makes you a great listing agent. That's what turns you into a mega listing agent, is taking it from us in terms of what it looks like from the trenches, how to have success.
Yep, that's exactly right. If any of you have any questions about the course or anything, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If we'll go to the next slide, I know there's a QR code. It is a 9-week course. We are Wednesdays from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Central. 1:30 on Wednesdays is our time. So all calls are recorded. You have your own individual portal where you can access all recordings post 60 days after completion of the 9 weeks. You get workbooks, so all of the systems, dialogues, trackers, everything that we utilize to simplify, it's all included. It's $500 if you are a Bold graduate. Use Bold 15 and you get 15% off. If you are a Mastery client, it is, Graham, you might put in the chat or correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Mastery 15 and you get 15% off. Yes, thank you. And so our mission is for all agents to really focus on listings. Like if there was anything that would give you all the life by design in real estate, it is leading with listings. We are a testament to that. I've experienced both sides of the business very heavily. And listings give you freedom, and listings buy your time back. And essentially that's really what we all want. And listings generate leads. So again, you can refer them out, you can give them to your team, depending on if you're an individual or a rainmaker. So.
And if you made it here today, you can make it there next week.
That's exactly right. So we launch next week. So we trust that we'll see you all there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to fasttrack@kw.com, and just a friendly reminder that you will get this recording. So have a great day, everyone.
See you, everybody.